All right, hello and welcome back to the Lacrosse Culture Daily YouTube page as we continue our coverage of the OJLL playoffs and of the playoffs nationally around the country throughout the summer. So a big night last night in Ontario, two really good games going on. The first was really a rout. Mimico beats Peterborough 18-7. I was at Mimico Arena, fantastic atmosphere last night, a really great crowd, I thought, at Mimico Arena, and an interesting dynamic too. A lot of college coaches there in town for some recruiting events that are going on in Canada. So a very knowledgeable lacrosse crowd, and cool to see people really taking an interest in junior A lacrosse in Canada. I do believe it's the best lacrosse development tool out there, and cool to see people getting out and checking out the game. This one was over quick. I got to the game a few minutes late. Was not on the call for this one. It was 5-0 when I got there. They scored twice in the first minute, 5 times in the first 10 minutes, and by the 10:21 point of the first period, it was 5-0. At the end of the first period, it was 7-1. So this game was over quickly. I said that role players play better at home. That was true. Mimico just dictated the pace of this game in every aspect and the physicality for the entire game. Really balanced scoring for the Mountaineers. Justin Tavares actually led the team in scoring from a goals perspective. He had 4 goals to go along with 2 in the first game, so bringing his total to 6. Obviously, that's a lot for anybody, but Tavares plays most of his lacrosse out the back door for Mimico. He's basically a defender who stays and plays some offense. So to get 4 goals from a guy like that is obviously a plus. And then Roussel has 3. Jordan Vincent, another D guy, has 2. Dudemain 2. Angus McDonnell, who is again kind of a two-way guy, 2 more. Moran Weeks 2 more. Finn Thompson 1. Justin Lee had a goal and 8 assists. And then Aiden McDonnell, another defensive guy. So if you count the goals from Tavares, you get 9 goals from basically non-offensive personnel, or at least guys who don't play 100% of their reps on offense, and that's how you get to 18 goals. We said in game 1 that both the higher scoring game and therefore the faster pace game favored Mimico. That was definitely true in this game, and I also talked about in a video and an article the extent to which Mimico is really their success depended on how many shots they got, up above 60 shots in this game. 64-54, they were at 40 in game 1. So clearly, just on that, the shots is really a metric for how Mimico is playing and how they're really controlling the loose ball battle, because shots and loose balls in the game of lacrosse are often very correlated. And then obviously, they got after the Peterborough goalies, who up to this point have been outstanding, kind of like we saw in the St. Catharines Orangeville game, which we'll talk about next. I would expect Cole Gervais and Gavin Williamson to bounce back. Gervais has been the starter all the way along, and I expect him to be back in there Friday. But an outstanding effort from Mimico. They looked like the bigger, older team, and that's true. And we expect that at home, right? Just like Peterborough dictated the pace on their home floor, I think Mimico did that here. So as we look to game 3, I'll be on the call for that one. We'll be back at the Mem Center in Peterborough, watching the loose ball battle and therefore the shot battle, and then the pace. If it gets up and down at like a track meet, these Mimico defenders can hit some shots and really get going. And then if Peterborough can slow it down, I think that's where they have success in really limiting high quality opportunities, letting Gervais see the ball, because he does not let in very many weak ones. Even the shots that I saw last night that went in, I didn't think were particularly weak. So for Mimico, it's really nice to see that you got that you're scoring finally, and you see a bunch of guys building confidence, and you're winning still. With all this secondary scoring, you figure, they have a couple games coming where, Dudemain and Thompson and Waters will really light it up. But if you have secondary scoring, then great. And I think they were sharing the ball really well, getting to the dirty areas of floor, and again, just putting a ton of rubber on net. Peterborough led by Daniel Clark with 4 points. A frustrated night for the Lakers, right? It's playoff lacrosse. They've been on a pretty good run there with the 3 in a row against Six Nations, and then the first game win against Mimico. Playoff lacrosse is hard, and it's hard to win. And these two teams, in addition to being evenly matched, are not geographically close to each other. So the road team is going to be having a battle for all of these games, right? There are going to be long bus trips and everything that goes with that. And we talked to the Mimico coaching staff before game 1. They said no excuses. I think that is the right mentality and the way you have to approach it. And I guarantee you, Coach Hope and the Peterborough staff would say the same thing. But just because they're not making excuses doesn't mean that's not actually a major factor in this series and, something to kind of watch. So Game 3 goes Friday. Really looking forward to that one. Should be a really great game. And, this looks to be a pretty fun series here that has the potential to go the distance. And then switching briefly to St. Catharines versus Orangeville, I said this will be more competitive throughout Game 1. That's not really indicative, and it was. And I think, by the way, the same thing is true for Peterborough. Mimico would be absolutely shocked if it's another 18-7 game for the Mountaineers, but St. Catharines comes back with a better effort. Unfortunately for them, the way these 5-game series are set up for the visiting team, down 1-0, you really have to defend home floor. Your life gets a lot harder as they now have to go on the road to Tony Rose, a tough place to win in its own right. Need to take 3 in a row against a really good Orangeville team and 2 at Tony Rose. So the odds are stacked against them now, but I'm sure they will relish in that opportunity a little bit to kind of play free and get some, play with some house money. For St. Catharines, their goals came on the doorstep, and that's got to be the key, is how can we get closer to O'Toole? He just hasn't let in very many outside shots in all playoff long, going back to the Beaches series, and, St. Catharines has to continue to work to get inside. They thought they had some good off-ball plays, some good backdoor cuts. Zach Toll had a couple really nice moves to get in on the goalie, but however they can scheme up shots, within closer range to O'Toole, the better. And then for Orangeville, maybe not their best effort statistically in terms of they only, it was only a 9-6 game, but they continue to look the part. Joey Spalina, again, led the scoring, 4 more goals in this game. A bunch of them were short side. He seems to continue to get goalies on the short side hip. All right, really tough shot to hit, especially for an overhand type shooter. Quite often, but he manages to keep putting it in that pocket, and goalies have a really tough time, seeming to get to it. So he has 4 more goals, and then Deere has 2, Matthews has 2, and Ron has 1 to finish out the scoring. Matthews, Deere, Spalina all ended with 6 points. The other note I had is, the chemistry between Deere and Matthews just continues to get better, and I think the key is, both guys can handle the ball. Both guys can set picks. Both guys can shoot it pretty well, and it just really kind of keeps defenses on their toes. The first goal was a give and go, Matthews to Deere, back to Matthews, and then Deere set a few picks for Matthews on goals, and then Matthews setting up Deere as well. And that's typically the really good 2-man game pairings have 2 guys who can do a little bit of both. I think Deere is primarily the pick setter. But Matthews does a good job of getting him rewarded, and also they just have good, rapport together. So those 3 are tough. There's no doubt about it. They're really hard to scheme for. And, Bully Horseman ends with 5 assists, and Jackman's in there as well as Ron and some of the other guys, Cohen Jennings, that they've had in the lineup. But, I think it's probably safe to say they're one of the deepest offenses out there. And then at the top 3 are really good, and that continued last night. So for the Athletics, a much better effort, one they definitely feel a lot better about. Again, not surprised at all. This is kind of what I thought the series was going to look like, lower scoring than we saw in Game 1, and just kind of a more grinded out series. We also saw, I think, some more rough stuff in this game, just a little bit. And, it's not really a surprise at all either. One thing I did hear people talking about was kind of the atmosphere in the building. I wasn't there last night, but in our, kind of my experience this summer, Canada Summer Games Park has had one of the best crowds we've seen all summer, I think. In rinks where the broadcast angle is the same size where the fans sit, it's tough to feel that through the camera, which I think is understandable. But, from my impression, it's been a pretty good atmosphere up there. And then Mimico last night I thought was rocking. So 2 pretty fun games, and, a lot to look forward to here. So Game 3, Mimico, Peterborough, Friday night, and then Game 3 of Orangeville, St. Catharines is Saturday night. That's also Game 4 of Mimico, Peterborough is also Saturday night. So, we could have our final series set by this weekend, depending what happens here. And, I think it probably might be fair to think that Peterborough, Mimico might be going the distance as well. So we just got to wait and see there, but should be a fun weekend of lacrosse. And, we'll have obviously coverage on Lacrosse Culture Daily all weekend long and all summer long here. So thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed. And, we'll see you next time.